the interesting thing about this Web 3.0 kind of thing that I think is really exciting is the idea that people on Facebook and YouTube have been deplatformed, and a lot of them lost like 1 million subscriber communities overnight. 10 years of work gone. And I think you, like you just said, Rich, you just experienced something similar, and you're kind of on eggshells as to whether or not you're going to get demonetized and removed tomorrow. So I'm sure on Saber's platform as well, there's very simple rules. Don't post the atomic codes. Don't post people
don't promote violence or do anything.
Yeah, incitement to violence, all this type of stuff. But apart from that, please offend as many people as possible. We want offensive jokes. We want offensive people. We want to make we want to make a point. This is here to stay, and decentralized kind of vision on freedom of speech and anti-censorship is here, and the technology is here, and we're damn well building it. Yeah. And one of the cool things is that, let's say for whatever reason we decide that we don't like crypto, Rich, and we want to deplatform you, we want to remove you. Well, on blockchains now, all of your assets and all of your reputation, your communities, everything that you've done on those blockchains is still there, right? So our platform that ties into the Steam blockchain, and hopefully as we go forward, many of these other blockchains, could deplatform you because we decide we don't like your politics or whatever, right? Not that that's not our policy at all, but if we did, the way that we're building 3Speak out is to post a lot of the main attributes of what you do in terms of building your community, in terms of who's in your community, in terms of how many assets you've got, in terms of the tokens that you release. I'll go into that in a bit. And basically store it on these blockchains so that if we do remove you for whatever reason, you can just pop across to another platform straight away, and all of your assets, all of the things that you've done in the history that are of importance to store, right, are there, and you can just transfer them across. So now the ownership of the digital data and digital efforts that you put in are yours, right? And there's nothing that any of these platforms can do to remove that from you in the future. And that's what excites me about this kind of Web 3.0. Talking about communities, being able to make a community, that community is on the Steam blockchain currently will be owned by you as the content creator themselves. And then that's there for forevermore, right? And you can then tokenize that community. And our current model is about building out organic, sustainable purchases for your token so that you can create a genuine economy in that token, not just driven by speculation, but it's driven by the requirement to purchase and hold that token. So therefore, for example, if one of your biggest followers holds the most of the token, maybe they get some privilege every month. Maybe they get a signed photo from Crypto Rich. I don't know. There's all sorts of things. Yeah.
What would you want that for? Well, I'm going to move you on. I'm going to move you on, right? Because I want to get David in, right? They might want a signed photo of David. Now, I want to let you all know there is a problem with Holochain, right? And here's the problem with Holochain. I don't know it as well as I know the other projects. And the problem is David hasn't been on my channel often enough to explain, right? He's been far too busy working on the project rather than coming onto my channel to explain. So David, if you could explain how Holochain promotes decentralization.
Yeah, it's been really interesting, and I love just listening to everyone, just the various overlaps and crossovers. It's been great. I kind of gave a brief intro of Holochain when I was supposed to be giving my intro, but I think as Synth said, that Holochain's reason for existence is to allow it to be easy for people to build distributed applications.
Yeah,
that's just that. It just means that the application lives on end user devices. They own and run the application, and they're communicating, interacting, transacting with each other. So it's an open source protocol to be able to do that. And so we built Holo, the distributed hosting network, to be able to demonstrate the kinds of things you could do on Holochain.
Okay, but you have physical devices.
The holoports, yeah. So they're to demonstrate, they're to give people an understanding. So we released the holoports late last year, shipped early this year, and so a holoport will sit in someone's house or office or whatever, and that will be able to host Holochain applications. But you can also do it in virtual machine,
right?
Shortly, but the hosting box is an idea that just signifies, okay, it's the equivalent of a data center that's just sitting in your house. But the purpose of all of these applications is, as I say, it's build distributed apps. That's what we exist to do.
Yeah, and it's open source. Community organization? Is there a foundation behind it?
Foundation behind it, yeah. So we fundraise we were self-funded with various people and doing various things for 10 to 15 years, and then raise some funds for the ICO to concentrate the development efforts for the hosting network as well as the Holochain protocol. And they'll have a lot of releases coming out over the course of this year. But I mean, I don't know if any of the guys here want to ask any questions or to help me explain things in a different way. But I mean, it's like that's the crux. The crux is, how do you enable building of distributed apps?
Yes. Okay.
Do it through an application framework from our perspective.
Yes. Okay. Well, look, do any of you want to ask any questions of David or anybody else about their particular projects?
So I had a question. I read the Holochain white paper, and so you guys are going to pay someone if they host an app. I'm going to get paid for hosting it, right? Like the person owning the
Holoport.
No, yeah. So how that all works? So if you and I were both running Holochain, and we were both running running an application like a Holochain Twitter or something like that, or Holochain message application, and we send a message to each other. That's just pure peer-to-peer. So there are no fees for a Holochain to Holochain transaction. The reason we built Holo was we thought, well, not everyone's going to want to run Holochain. So you can sort of run Holochain at the moment using Holoscape. And not everyone's going to want to download and install Holoscape. People are just going to use an app or go to a website.
They're going to get tokens for providing the hardware, right?
So what they do is say you've built say you've got a hosting box, a Holoport, right? And say that I want to run. I've got this Twitter application, and I want anyone in the world to be using my Twitter application. If a user is running Holoscape or running Holochain, no fees for that. If I want to use Twitter and let's just say Jason wants to use this Twitter and he just wants to use it through his web browser, then every time that request is served, it's got to be served by, say, you, Synth, through your Holoport. And so there's a microtransaction that I, as the owner of this distributed Twitter application, pay you to host the application for Jason.
So what if I pretend I have like an app, right? And I get like 100 of my bots to like just start hammering my app. I'm going to get like tokens, right?
Exactly. They're credits. So it's effectively a distributed mutual credit design where you as the host will receive credits for hosting, and then you cash out those credits or exit the ecosystem at a certain point in time when you want to use your credits to be able to pay your rent or whatever it's going to be. The reason those credits have come into existence is because someone who wants to run an application also wants to buy hosting, right? And so they've paid Bitcoin or ETH or US dollars or HOT or whatever it's going to be to be able to buy their hosting credits, which are then distributed by the network as the application served out to users.
So is Holo buying the credits, or is the user running?
Never Holo, always the application owner. Just like today, right? You pay Amazon Web Services to be able to host your cloud-hosted application. Exactly the same economy, except that to do the kind of provide the infrastructure for the complete distribution of serving the data as well as the payments, you need a different type of currency.
Okay. All right, Saber?
Can I run such kind of applications directly in my home network?
Yep.
How you deal with firewalls and stuff like that? I mean, do I need an administrator to set up all that and etc., or you have wormholes, tunneling, or something?
Yeah, exactly. The latter. Lots of work.
Yeah, can you imagine? Interesting.
Okay. All right, thank you. And David, you are going to have to come back on the channel. Okay?
Looking forward to it.
So I can get my head around Holochain. Now, Does anybody have any questions of any of the other projects? Otherwise, I have a question.
Rich disappeared.
You always make sure he leaves a good expression when he does disappear, though.
Okay, I'm now back. You can hear me now? All right. Does anybody have any questions of any of the other projects? Otherwise, I have a question for all of you, and you can volunteer.
I would like to know something about the Atomicdex, and Bittube by himself is 2 years ago. It was a fork of Monero, and how it looks with support for that kind of crypto node protocols.
So unfortunately, at this time, we can't do crypto node atomic swaps, mainly because they lack the requisite opcodes, and due to the ring signatures that don't have traditional multisig, which is required for the swap. However, we are in the process of taking different blockchains and making them compatible. Just recently, we did Tezos. So crypto node coins are definitely in our view, but I can't give you a time exactly when that will be, because it is a very different kind of system than traditional Bitcoin protocol or ETH balance-based systems. So unfortunately, we can't do crypto node just yet, but we're working towards that end.
Yeah, and just so you can do Tezos blockchain, Bitcoin protocol blockchains, and Ethereum blockchain, and swaps between all three blockchains. So Tezos,
correct, yes.
Money, and then change that to Litecoin, for example.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You could, Tezos to Ethereum, Ethereum to Komodo, Komodo to some ERC20 token. Yeah. Pretty much most coins are compatible. Unfortunately, like I said, a crypto node is one of those kinds that aren't yet, just because of how they do the ring signatures. And also BitShares based coins we don't have activated yet, but those seem to be in the pipeline as well. So we're looking forward to keep on adding more types of systems into our Atomicdex application.
Right. And hopefully soon Piratechain.
Okay, so Piratechain is, due to the nature of the Z transactions, there's obviously the issue. It's a UTXO chain. It's just how do you match the UTXOs when they're private? So the two ways that we've been thinking about doing it is, one way is through an exchange of U-keys through something like our recently being built DEX P2P communication layer. Or the other way would be to have that like an exception where it just as like notarization transactions are public, a swap could be public, but as you see, that sort of eliminates the privacy aspect when it would come to the swaps, but you could just swap it, move it back into a private address after. It's still being discussed because there's a lot of core work that needs done regarding that. As you know, mobile support needs to be done for Z-only transactions right now, and I believe Zcash just came out with that not too long ago. I know we have to adapt that for Pirate, and so that is also in the pipeline. It's just that, like you said, these different kinds of protocols that are not the standard they're obviously going to require a good bit more work on our end. We're in the processes of fine tuning all the core aspects of the project, and then we're going to keep on trying to add more and more types of different protocols, because we would like to add, another protocol we're looking at adding is Tendermint as well. So the different Tendermint coins like Binance's coin and Cosmos and so on, tokens on that ecosystem as well into it. So it'll be a lot of work, but Pirate is definitely on the horizon. It's sort of like
Definitely.
It definitely is. I mean, Komodo removed his privacy features last year around February, and Pirate was sort of like the chain where a lot of our community went to, because it was based off of the Komodo blockchain initially. So we're definitely they'll probably be the first of the privacy coins, true privacy coins to be added onto Atomicdex. I mean, we already do like Dash and Nix and Zcash and coins like that, but in terms of full privacy coins, Pirate will be the first.
Yeah, and Piratechain actually came back because a bunch of Komodo devs were wondering if it was possible. for every single transaction to be shielded. They did some tinkering under the hood with some.
I wanted to ask you a question. So you've done development on all these platforms, like at least 5 or 6 different blockchain platforms, right?
So, what do you mean by that? I mean, we originally came from NXT, and
you're supporting all these different. You're supporting all
yes.
these different things. So, are you running one virtual machine and just implementing the virtual machine on top of each of the blockchain platforms, or how do you have an app that runs on multiple platforms? Are they all like clones of Ethereum, and they're all using WebASM, and they're all exactly pretty much the same? Or how diverse are these languages for blockchain development so far?
Okay, so in the Komodo ecosystem, in terms of languages, primarily everything's written in C, C++. However, it is entirely possible to code up a library and add other languages. We're currently working on a Rust implementation of our smart contract technology. So in terms of Atomicdex, about how these different platforms interact, a lot of it has to do with getting on the external chain, either the requisite opcodes so they don't have them, or the basically ability to mimic them in some form. Originally for Ethereum, we had to create best way to explain it is like an intermediate type chain because it didn't have the UTXO structure. I know we've moved away from that, but initially that's how we've sort of worked around it. And I see with different kinds of platforms, something similar being done as well. So so the main thing is to get either the opcodes available on their chain, or find some way to mimic around it, and to also work around different unique features, like on CryptoNote coins with the ring signatures, which has been a little bit trickier than we would like to admit.
Are you you're packing your program in a byte array and then you're just implementing the opcodes to operate on the array or something like that?
To be honest, I'm not head of development, so I could forward you to one of our developers who could explain a lot better. Sorry I couldn't answer your question.
Do you like the UXTO or do you like the Ethereum model better? Do you think the developers are moving to UXTO or they're moving away from it?
Okay, so with the UTXO structure and versus balance-based structure, there definitely is an advantage to the balance-based structure in terms of just understandability. People are more familiar with that. But with the UTXO-based structure, it does allow for a lot of, I guess I would best describe it as ledger-style logic. So you're able to, like a normal ledger, like a paper and pencil ledger, each UTXO is just like an entry, right? So it's, if you think of it like that, you're able to take the UTXO and do the specific logic and then just change the entry. So it's best way to explain it is that I don't think that the UTXO model is very popular, but I do think it adds a lot of functionality in a lot of basically building off of standing on the shoulders of giants. Like you're building off of Bitcoin, you're building off of all the forks of Bitcoin as well, and you can adapt those technologies that are already built and basically give that capability to other developers as well, so that they can build already 5 miles ahead instead of trying to build everything from scratch, which is just it's a bunch of wasted time when you're trying to do something that's already been done, right? So
yes. Now, Jason, excuse me. If you want, I can connect all of you with each other, right? And you can work out whatever you want, and then we can all do videos on my channel together in pairs, in triples. That's not a problem, right? I want to bring it back to decentralization. You mentioned earlier, Jason, BitShares, right? That would be the Steam blockchain, right? Because Steam came off BitShares. That's what you were referring to there. Okay. So then I want to ask a question of all of you, and any of you can answer. But why decentralization? Because each of your projects promotes decentralization in one way or another. Why?
Get rid of the evil. I say to get rid of the evil, because sooner or later, soon you get too successful. I mean, maybe you change your mind, and this thing needs to be blocked since the beginning.
Right. You mean like companies get too big, gets too centralized, and they want to exert control? Because YouTube started off with the best intentions, as did
everyone. Everyone starts.
Okay, but then how do I know that with your project or with any of the projects here, with your noble intentions that you have now, that you aren't at some time going to turn into an evil, centralized behemoth like Google or Facebook?
I think that's the major difference, because when you open source it and you have it decentralized, there are others which has the opportunity to just fork away or to run their own network even without you, and you're out of the game.
Right. Fair point. Because nobody can stop Bitcoin. Nobody can centralize Bitcoin, really.
That's the point.
Anything for anybody else? Anyone wants to comment on what I've just said? Or
say just with regards to decentralization, for us, it's a lot about trustlessness. So no one has to trust us, and we don't have to trust anyone else, right? If they want to create videos, they can do it on our platform. And as we spread and grow these different platforms via white labeling services or working with people like Saber, we'll end up creating so many different opportunities for different people to post and express themselves that if we mess up, then someone else will be able to take that business away from us. So that kind of decentralization. And also, when you're running on a decentralized protocol, you don't have to trust one single person to transact your business. So this is massive for the future, and it's not been fully understood yet, I don't think, by the world, but it's going to be a massive thing in the future. The ownership of your digital rights, the ownership of your ability to transact without having to trust anyone, actually, is a massive thing for the future.
Matt, thank you. By the way, I forgot to tell you all, David said to me that he had to leave at 1 o'clock, so he has. Thank you all for that, and I'll be in touch with him afterwards. Okay. All right. So who else? Anything anybody else say?
I have a really, really funny story about this. So when at the beginning, when I started getting involved in Bitcoin, I was involved in the Ron Paul campaign, and I was involved in involved in the back end of WikiLeaks Australia. And I was like, oh, we're revolutionaries. We're gonna take out the government. We're gonna decentralize the Federal Reserve. We're gonna end debt slavery. We're gonna this decentralization was gonna completely change society it was gonna completely change what money was. And money was gonna be something that changed from being issued by the state to being issued by individuals, and I thought, it's gonna solve all these problems. It's gonna annihilate the oligarchy, and we're gonna live in utopia, right? And then what I ended up finding out was, so it started with just the blockchain decentralization. It's this incredible idealism, and we're building this utopia. And then you saw what happened with WikiLeaks, and the guy gets locked in an embassy for 9 months, and he gets tortured, and the man gets stripped naked, and then the government puts him in a solitary confinement cell and turns the air conditioning on to negative 20 degrees, and then takes away his or her blanket, and was just fucking torturing these people. And then what happened in America was you had divisions in the political elite, and they just Clinton and Trump, and they're at each other's throat, they're ready to kill each other in the street. So what I thought was, decentralization, everything's going to be great. And then I found out no matter what you do, there's these groups, and they're going to grab whatever they can, and they're going to attack each other. And so a lot of my idealism in the last 10 years, and then I saw the greed. So we started out with idealism and this libertarian community of basically, it was just Bitcoin, Ron Paul supporters, yeah, digital gold, yeah, Ron Paul. And that was the whole thing when Bitcoin was at a penny until it went to $1,000. And then people started coming in to get rich quick, and all these scammers and, kidnappings and lawsuits, and everyone stealing anything that wasn't tied down. So I went through this whole period of, disillusionment. And now it comes back to what, practicality. I can't change everything. I can't change the world. I can't change the elite. I can, I have a little bit of power, and I can change a little bit, maybe over 10 or 20 years, but I can't fix human nature. I can't fix that people are going to be greedy, that they're going to do whatever it is that they can get away with. I can't fix the power structure in society. And during that whole period, I just constantly saw these people with power just railroading, just bulldozing over anyone. They don't care what's true, what's false, what's good or what's bad. their only morality is what benefits them is good, and what doesn't benefit them is bad. So I found out, like, I'm actually dealing with like sociopath. It's like Lord of the Flies over here of a bunch of these sociopaths at the top. And if you get in the middle of that, your idealism means nothing. And they're just going to cut off your head, use you until you're useful. Like, for instance, WikiLeaks got Trump into power. They got rid of Clinton. And then Alex Jones got Trump into power. Then after he was in power, he just threw Alex Jones under the bus and just, fuck it, I don't need you anymore. And WikiLeaks guys who got Trump into power is still being persecuted, and the other people in WikiLeaks are still being tortured and harassed, and Assange is still being targeted. So it's basically like, once these guys get in power, they're going to do whatever benefits them, and they don't care whether or not there's decentralization or blockchain, and so really that was a shock to me, and so that's sort of like paralysis. Like, you have to learn like what you can control and what you can't, and so I think a lot of these blockchain projects, they need to be more realistic. They have to figure out how this is actually going to be applied, like boots on the ground, and how it's going to be applied in people's lives, instead of just like DAX and atomic swaps, and is this really going to improve society? So I had started to look at applications of blockchain in society, and it's just my whole view changed from this sort of idealism to this very jaded pragmatism, and so the whole process over that 10 years was I don't know, I wouldn't suggest anyone else do that.
Yes, no, thank you, Synth. And there is something in that. See, I think you all know my background is in child protection and social work, and I've often come across comments from, I don't know, players in this space that, this is crypto, this is supposed to be good. No, it's just human beings. Human beings being human beings, wherever human beings are, doing whatever human beings do. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and sometimes it's a mixture of both. But I think decentralization can protect us, because as there's a greater pull to authoritarianism and greater centralization, like what I think is happening in China with the social media control, that decentralization empowers people at the grassroots level. And Draeth, I'd like you to say something about that, because I want to make sure everybody gets a fair shot in terms of how Piratechain does that. Resisting centralization.
Well, one quick thing to note is that with decentralization, especially within exchanges, for example, shows that, like, for example, the Altbit, right? Centralized exchange.
A recent hack.
One hacker steals a ton of people's funds, right? Yeah. And that's no good, obviously. And you can use that as a metaphor for, life in general. Once there's a centralized power, it either makes it too powerful or too vulnerable, or both, So with Piratechain, with all of our transactions being private and hidden, there's no targetability of anybody, in the sense that there's no rich list, so you can't go after somebody for having too much, or what they think is too much, or anything of that sort. You can't tell who's who, you can't tell exactly what's being transacted, nothing. So, and then with the decentralized nature of our project structure, as far as team members and so forth, we have equal voice in what we all do. So there's nothing that gets pushed forward without the consensus of the community in general. So there has to be, in our view, the majority consensus on pushing forward toward prospect A, in order for us to really go after prospect A. So
yeah, and that's actually a very interesting point, because the organization of Piratechain is decentralized.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't necessarily the case with the other projects here, or it may be indifferently. Like, for example, Saber, if you were to retire or do something else, because who's going to replace you necessarily? Because it's an organization of sort. Same with you, Synth, and Skycoin. And I don't know about Komodo so much, but definitely about 3Speak Online, as far as I understand it. So we do have a point of weakness in terms of the organization being centralized often. Anything anybody want to say about that? How do you address that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we'll do, it's not perfect, and like you say, Mr. Skycoin, I forget your name, sorry.
Synth.
Synth, yeah. It's about practicality over idealism. So, for example, one of the things that we'll do with 3Speak.
So we do have a point of weakness in terms of the organization being centralized often. Anything anybody want to say about that? How do you address that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we'll do, it's not perfect, and like you say, Mr. Skycoin, I forget your name, sorry. Synth, yeah. It's about practicality over idealism. So, for example, one of the things that we'll do with 3Speak